Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by Steve Lichtenstein and Ericka Concha, and who recently were nominated for an Emmy for their work on Top Chef. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Now I guess I would love to know, because you've been nominated for the body of work. So like what goes into a typical episode? Like can you take me through your typical episode on um Top Chef?
Sure. Like a typical episode, it's structured. It's has two challenges where the beginning of the show they do a quick fire challenge, and the chefs usually have 30 minutes or 45 minutes to, they're tasked with making a plate of food, based on around they might have a bog of cranberries, and they say you must make a dish that includes cranberries. You have 30 minutes and go, and they, on the fly, come up with a dish. The judges eat it immediately, and the judging happens right then. And the winner this season would win a cash prize. It used to be immunity, but now immunity is granted, in the elimination challenge.
Okay.
That's correct, right, Erica? It's not the
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Previously, they would get it for that first challenge, and then this season they, you know, put it on its head a little bit to, I guess, push the chefs to not rest if they have immunity during the bigger challenge, and so they awarded that immunity instead on the big challenge, which I think was a good change this season.
Mhm.
yes. So then after the quick fire, then they move on to the elimination challenge, which is the main larger challenge in the episode. And that's usually, like they'll film it over the course of a couple days. The first day they'll go shop, like they'll say, okay, tomorrow you're going to serve a room of 12, famous chefs from the local area, and you'll be presenting them with beef Wellingtons or, um, or a food based on, cheese, like we're in Wisconsin, you must make a cheese dish, um, so they shop at Whole Foods, maybe sometimes some local markets. And the first day they cook in the kitchen, start their brainstorming and figure out what they're making. And then the second day of the challenge is the service, where they do cook a little bit in the morning, and then the service takes place in the afternoon, and then they are judged, and the loser, the person with the least favorite dish is eliminated, and the winner receives immunity for the next episode.
My friends and I would make little videos in our backyards, imitations of Indiana Jones and Star Wars. Eventually that need to tell stories became more of a technical interest and an interest in the art. To me, what's exciting is using cinema in its full potential, which is rhythm and sound design and music. Our job is to set up expectations and then deliver on them. I'm Brian Cates, and this is my course in film editing.
So what about for yourselves as editors? Like what is your typical process like when you're cutting this?
Uh, well, I would say, first off, we have like an excellent team with us that they're the kind of the first boots on the ground in terms of when footage comes in, and they watch everything. And it's a big show. We're at a 90-minute time slot now. I don't know yet if we're going to do that next season. I guess that's a different question, but it's something we kind of grew into because the challenges are massive. You know, they're a lot to produce. There's a lot of fun, and a lot of interpersonal stuff we also wanted to play, and so the shows kind of got bigger and bigger. My point in saying that is that there's a lot of footage to get through initially, and so we have an excellent team of story producers who are they're watching everything, you know, and we also have, you know, logs from the field as well that are helping us kind of navigate and make sure that you pick up this little moment that maybe happened in a corner somewhere that wasn't necessarily part of the challenge, but important to the show overall. And so then they put together the initial string outs for us that, you know, are maybe ranging from anywhere from, I would say a small string would be like 12 minutes, 15 minutes, up to maybe 22 minutes for an act, which is, you know, a lot. And eventually those acts then are going to be whittled down to, you know, somewhere between, you know, 6.5 minutes and 12 minutes maybe. So, but we like to see more rather than less, so we can really get a sense of what's happening at that time in that scene. And we want to make sure and capture kind of the personalities and, you know, all of the beautiful things that make people and fun to watch. And so, you know, I would say for me initially, it's watching everything, those long string outs in a show and kind of understanding what's happening in an episode. And then you get into it and kind of play, and you know, and some things we can kind of speed through, like a team kick or something like that. Nobody cares about the physical pulling of the knife as much as then what happens after. You know, you know, who's excited to be on a team with somebody, and again, just keying in to those personality moments on top of the culinary prowess that they're bringing. I don't know, Steve, you want to add anything to that?
I mean, that was great, Ericka. I mean,
Thanks.
I echo Ericka's thoughts. That was great.
I really want to ask how, because one of the things that sort of gets me is like it's cooking. And growing up, I was never a big fan of cooking, but you get hooked on these shows because of the tension and the like suspense and what have you. So how do you guys approach building that into the show and working with the footage to get that feeling?
I think, you know, one way is we always try to bring in, you know, whether it's shots or mentions of the running time clock. And I know that the bear is also, that's how they create a lot of tension. They're you know, always cutting to the clock. And you know, we you know, it's also, you know, musically, you know, when the challenge starts, it may be, you know, up tempo music, but then the further in that we go into the edit and with their deadline looming, you know, the music tends to shift into, you know, more dramatic and tense, you know, in nature. And then the very end, it's just like the fastest, most dramatic music we have in our library, we throw in. But you know, definitely the cutting to the clock ticking down, and the chefs we don't have to really create much tension because they are really that nervous about the time going down, and a lot of times it really is to the last second. That last you know, microgreen is going on with the tweezer right before the, you know, clock hits 0. So it's tense.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make is, yeah, we don't have to manufacture that tension at all because they are pushing so hard to the very end. And that's, you know, we're not creating a situation that looks like they almost didn't finish, because a lot of times they almost don't finish. They're really, you know, pushing that hard all the way to the end. And also, I would just like to pick up what you said. You know, you're not so much a fan of the cooking as much as you are from like the drama, whatever. And I think that's one thing that is great about Top Chef. And I think why we are still now going into season 22 is that it brings different types of viewers to it. You can come for the interpersonal And but also a foodie can come and say, "Oh, that's such a cool dish, and I want to learn more about that." And we're able, I think, really to open up people's minds in terms of trying different cuisines, because we've really moved into a space where it's not meat and potatoes and pasta dishes. And we're doing some really cool stuff. Oh, we're not. The chefs are doing some really cool things that we're highlighting, in terms of bringing African cuisine. I feel like we were one of the early ones to do that in season, was it 16? Do you remember?
17.
17, where you weren't seeing a lot of that, that culinary view yet, and now you see it a lot. Well, not a lot, but now it's more mainstream to see it on a cooking show. So I like to think that we can bring something for everybody in terms of viewers.
I would love to know, because both of you cut feature docs outside of your work in Top Chef. Is there something that you learn when you're cutting and crafting Top Chef that you found really useful in cutting feature docs?
I've seen a shift in documentary as it's become more widely enjoyable. It's not long shot. Sometimes it is, but I've noticed that Top Chef that's a fast-paced show. I mean, it is a crazy fast-paced show. And so I'm seeing some of that now translate into documentary, where you're able to get a larger viewership because of the styling. I think the very slow-paced documentaries, though they still have their place, I think we're just seeing less of it, because we want to appeal to a broader audience that is, they want it to be moving. They don't need to sit in something forever to grasp it. Viewers are smart, and viewers consume a lot of content. And so in terms of anything that I've learned from Top Chef that translates into documentary world is just that they are more similar than I would have thought. And you want it to be dramatic, and you want it to be fast paced and hooking people right away. So I think the storytelling has changed a little bit in that way, but more people are watching documentary now as a result. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah.
Yeah. And, for me, I mean, I would say it's, editing Top Chef, from my experience, was very similar, to transition into like a music documentary. It was very much the same style. And, with Top Chef, we're often doing, we're often telling backstories of the chefs and getting into their personal lives a little bit and out of the kitchen. And so then in a documentary, you're obviously focusing on, people's, lives and their story. And it felt very similar, and like Ericka said, with the pacing, it's, the pace is increasing style wise in, society. So the pace seemed to translate for both genres.
Well, it's interesting to think, sort of, to what you guys are talking about, is like the pace has picked up so much. But then when I think about Netflix, they'll be like, here's a 6-episode documentary series. So it's like Wave is much, much faster than, watching something in the 80s. But then they've like got different angles. Each episode is going to focus on a different angle, and keep you hooked for 6 episodes with cliffhangers and what have you.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of cliffhangers, do you guys, because you're still cutting for broadcast, how do you like building in those cliffhangers? Is that something that the story editor might help you with on set, or how does that come to be?
Yeah, the story editors, when they first, they call it, string out the episode. They do build in, act out, cliffhanger moments for the whole show. And those sometimes, work, but then sometimes in the course of editing, we, or even just like trying to hit the broadcast time clock, we do have to shift things a little bit and alter, what the cliffhanger will be. But we always do, work hard to keep those cliffhanger moments and retain the viewers to keep the viewers' interest going through the show.
Sometimes an editor might have an idea, just because we're like super in the footage, that maybe wasn't one that just easily presented itself at the string out phase. And so sometimes we say, like I know that this is going on, and so maybe that would make an interesting act out that is, to Steve's point, going to fit better within our time clock, because things get fast and furious in there when we're trying to get all of the story in and hit those points and deliver at the right time.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. It gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now.
Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
You've been nominated for your body of work. So is there a particular episode or segment that you're incredibly proud of in your work?
Good question. Is there one in particular you can think of, Steve, while I think?
Well, I mean, this season, they, one of the challenges was chaos cuisine. And, so we were, and it was very difficult to even get across editorially what chaos cuisine means. It's a very broad term. But, in production, they shot their idea of an example of chaos cuisine, where it was a hot dog on a plate and sauce is being squirted on it, and then they remove the hot dog and put other things on. And so, editorially, we made a quick little montage of a chaos plate being made. And, I think it was, it worked visually and I think quickly conveyed the idea of chaos to the viewer. So that was fun.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know if I can top that. I think that was the best of the season. And then even the callback, because a lot of the chefs struggled with the concept too. I mean, it's, what is chaos? How far is too far? What's not enough? And so then there was even a callback. One of the chefs was really having a hard time conceptualizing what he was going to do. And then they went into his mind, editorially what he's thinking. And he's thinking like all of these chaotic thoughts that were all just visually represented through the editorial. And I mean, that's one of my favorite segments, definitely, of the season. Good call, Steve.
I have one last question for you. I'd love to know, what is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
I don't know if I want to admit to mine because it's too guilty.
Well, that's what makes it so good, though.
I know. I don't know, Steve, do you want to say yours first, and I'll see how bad mine is?
I mean, I love Vanderpump Rules. I'm
That's a great show.
I love watching it, and that editorial team is amazing and does great work, and I love that show so much. I can't get enough.
I'm so glad you said that, Steve, because then the first thing that went in my head was like some really bad stuff. But then I realized that no, the challenge has got to be what I can't get enough of, to the point during the pandemic, my husband and I, because I came in late on the challenge, which is now in season 40, excellently cut. And we went back during the pandemic because, you know, we're not working, and started at the beginning and just started watching them all the way through. That's what we did a lot during the pandemic. So it's a fantastic show, though.
Thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Thanks for having us. This has been super fun.
And that's our show for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com or, of course, on Instagram at filmmaker_you. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching.